And if there was nobody around to keep an eye on me, I could happily eat 50 of them a day, but I'd no longer be alive. Ooh, you ate a part of an elephant?
8 American things Britain doesn't even have a word for. Sounds like a very interesting video. Looking forward to getting into this. Just before we do that, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button. It massively helps out the channel we're going. Let's just jump straight into it and press play.
So it's very important for British people living in America, like me, to know the difference between the shoe brand and something else that Americans call a hush puppy before I put my foot in it. Literally in the case of the shoe.
Right.
Hello, I'm Lawrence Brown and I'm on a quest to uncover all of the memos that Britain and America lost in the pond, and one of those memos pertains to words.
I'm looking forward to this one.
You and I both know this by now. It's often said that Britain and America are two nations divided by a common language. And what does this mean? It means that English is a prominent language in both countries, but that we have different words and spellings and pronunciations for the same things. But what if I told you right here and now that both Britain and America have things for which the other country doesn't even have words? Well, today I'll be looking at a selection of those from the United States of America, a country I've lived in for the past 13 years. Now, as with all things Britain and America, a lot of these words come back to food, whereas some of them pertain to social customs, the law, and America's obscenely large landscape. And so without further ado, here are 8 American things that Britain doesn't even have a word for.
Let's get into it. Elephant ear.
Here's a story. Several years ago, my wife took me to the Indiana State Fair. And when I say she took me there, I got absolutely no say in the matter. And even as we stood in line for the world's most famous pig race, I couldn't help but look around me and notice the types of fair food that were on offer.
That sounds
Of course,
fun.
you had cotton candy, and of course the British do have a word for that. It's candy floss. You had hot dogs, otherwise known in Britain as hot dogs. And then you had elephant ear. And some British people, perhaps even some American people, might be thinking, oh, you ate a part of an elephant? No, thank goodness it's not a real elephant ear. No, this is just a type of fried dough that happens to be shaped.
I was thinking for a minute, is it actually an elephant ear? So I'm happy to find out it wasn't. I weren't too sure about that.
Like an elephant ear or a frisbee gone wrong. And the reason that I say that some Americans might not recognize this name is that it goes by different pseudonyms. You see, while Britain might not have a word for this, America has plenty, as well as elephant ear and fried dough. It also goes by fry bread, not to be confused with the fried bread that you might find on an English breakfast. Completely different beast. Doughboys, scones, again, not to be confused with an English scone / scone. Pizza frit, or my personal favorite, frying saucers. And while we're on the subject of American-derived food, that brings us on to this.
Grits. Grits I've heard of.
Ah yes, grits.
Not
now, on the
100%
face
what it
of
is,
it,
but
grits sound absolutely awful. Because when I think of the word grit, I think of two things. I think of grit to mean courage and resolve and strength of character, but usually sweat.
I've seen grits in a few videos, so yeah, I am very interested in trying that.
Or grit as in small bits of stone or sand. Either way, I don't want to eat that. But it turns out that grit, a Southern American dish, is a type of porridge. And I know what you're thinking, Britain. That's ridiculous, Lawrence. We do have a word for porridge, and it's porridge. This is a specific type of porridge and a big deal in the southern United States. But in the unlikely event that you're thinking of moving to the United States just because you want to live where grits is, but you don't want to move to the southern United States because you can't stomach 400-degree temperatures, in my experience, you can get grits here in the Midwest, and I assume other places in the United States. Second thoughts, it'd be easier just to stay in Britain and look up the recipe online. That's something you can't do so easily with this. Yes, B-U-T-T-E. Now, before I go any further, it's probably important, in the interest of not being demonetized, that I point out that this word is pronounced butte. And it's probably quite an appropriate pronunciation because buttes are often beautiful, or at the very least, stunning. Now, some people might be thinking, get to the point, clueless. What on earth is a butte? Well, a butte is a very specific type of hill, and this specific type of hill is not commonly found in Britain. It's a type of hill that has a flat top and vertical or nearly vertical sides. Think of the Mitten Butte in Monument Valley in Arizona, or Devil's Tower in Wyoming, or to give it its official name, Richard Dreyfuss's mashed potato. And now there are 3 words into the list. Do you want me to go on to number 4? In other words, do you want some more? Do you want some more? Do you want some more? Well, bring it on.
S'mores.
You see,
right, s'mores a couple years ago, I never heard of in my life, but it's become a little bit popular in the UK and you can get s'mores kits. I've never tried it. Maybe I should. Maybe I should try it. It does look very interesting, but it is something in the UK now.
what I did there, when I first moved to the United States, I was offered a s'more and I turned it down because I was frightened of what it might be. And then somebody described the content and my love for them from that moment on only grew. Just like my waistline. Of course, Americans know what a s'more is, but this is for my British viewers, i.e. my mum. An official s'more is a roasted marshmallow, right, stuck to a slab of chocolate. Sorry for the noises. And together they are sandwiched between a graham cracker, right? And if you're wondering what a graham cracker is, it's similar to what the British would call a digestive biscuit, except it's square and Americans pronounce it gram. And because of the fried marshmallow element to all of this, it's perfect to make one while you're camping. And you might be wondering, why is it called s'more with an apostrophe? Because it's a contraction of some more, meaning that my segue surprisingly made sense for once. Unlike this one, bring on the dogs.
Car hop.
The word car hop has nothing to do with dogs because that would be mental. Furthermore, a car hop is not a type of car that hops because see previous comment. A car hop is somebody who serves you food, but while you're in your car.
Oh, okay.
Now, of course, it's pretty well known that it's a big part of American culture to order food at the drive-thru. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about drive-ins. Drive-ins are a still lasting remnant of a bygone era here in the United States, where you park your car at the designated drive-in, the car hop comes to you and takes your order, and then brings you your food. And you stay there in this exact same spot right next to the restaurant or cafe or whatever you want to call it. And I personally have come to consider this fine dining even in a Prius. Allow me to do a quick shout out to two that I've been to. Recently on my Route 66 journey, I visited the Polka Dot Inn in Braidwood, Illinois. And car hops served me every now and again at Jean's Root Beer stand in Anderson, Indiana. And I am told that in some of the more...
The only time I've had someone come up to my car and take my food order, in fact, just thinking about it, they didn't come up to my car. I ordered it on the app and then they brought the food over to my car. But that was at a drive-in cinema and it was a new thing that they put in the area and then unfortunately it closed down after COVID. But it was an interesting place to go to because it was like a drive-in cinema, which you just don't get in the UK. You ordered the food on the app and then they brought it over to your car. Never seen that anywhere else before. But is that still a common thing in America? I'd be interested to try that.
Snazzy quarters of the United States. There are even car hops on roller skates, but they're difficult to find because it's not the 80s anymore.
That would be cool. Jaywalking.
Jaywalking. You may remember that I talked about this very topic a few months ago. I had absolutely no idea what jaywalking was. You know, it was a word that cropped up occasionally in films, but I just assumed it was a sport. I thought this was going to be a big deal, right? You know the joke, why did the chicken cross the road? Well, he didn't because he was too much of a chicken. At least that was the case at first, and after my wife had laughed at me 17 times, I started to get the impression that I might be overthinking this. All of the years that I've lived here, I don't think I've ever heard anybody say, "Ooh, did you see Ashley? I think she was jaywalking. Better call the cops." The reason we don't have a word for jaywalking in the UK is because that law doesn't exist. And funnily enough, despite our difficult relationship with rain and drizzle, we also don't have a word for this.
Rain check.
Admittedly, perhaps owing to the
I did see a video and they explained this and why it's called a rain check. So yeah, I know about this one.
Digital age in which RSVPing or not RSVPing is done at the click of a button. The word rain check is sadly one I haven't encountered very often since moving here. But I do remember it featuring a lot in American films in the 80s, so that's good enough for me. Basically, when somebody takes a rain check, it's to indicate that that person cannot accept the invitation right now, right? But they'd be happy to turn up in the future.
But I'm sure it was started at baseball games. I'm sure that's what it said in another video, that it was started in baseball games. When it would rain, you'd get a ticket for another baseball game. Let me know in the comments if I'm right.
Future.
Well,
you might be thinking, why is it called a rain check? Does the coming together of people depend on whether or not it's raining? Sort of. You see, it originated in baseball. A coupon might have been handed to a baseball ticket holder when the game was cancelled due to rain. And that would mean that that coupon holder could then attend the rearranged game without being charged. And while Britain also has a sport with a batsman and a lot of players who just stand around for no reason, the term rain check never caught on. Of course, that could also be something to do with the fact that we often turn down invitations in favour of that non-specific thing that we've got going on this weekend. Either way, Britain doesn't use the word rain check, just like it doesn't use our final entry, unless you're talking about shoes.
Hush puppy.
That's right, hush puppy, and to me, and admittedly to millions of Americans,
I see this in
hush
another
puppy
video as well.
was and is a brand of shoe. So it's very important for British people living in America, like me, to know the difference between the shoe brand and something else that Americans call a hush puppy before I put my foot in it, literally in the case of the shoe. Because in the US, and once again, particularly in the southern US, a hush puppy is, once again, another type of fried dough. Specifically, it's a ball about the size of a clementine of deep-fried cornmeal batter. And it sounds disgusting, but it's not. And if there was nobody around to keep an eye on me, I could happily eat 50 of them a day, but I'd no longer be alive. Put it this way, from experience, they do taste better than the shoe. And how do I know that? Because I was 11 years old once. That's it for this episode. Let me know in the comments below some other things that the other country doesn't have a word for. I'm Lawrence Brown. You can follow me on Twitter at LostInThePondUS, and be sure to subscribe to my channel so that my videos don't get lost in the pond.
Cool video. Really enjoyed checking it out. I'm surprised that I recognise certain words just purely from videos that we've checked out. I think before starting this channel, I wouldn't have recognised anything on that list. There was a couple that I did know, and then obviously a couple that I didn't. But very interesting video. We'll definitely have to check out the part 2. But thank you so much for checking out the video. I'd really appreciate if you could hit the subscribe button. It massively helps out the channel. But for now, I'm going to catch you on the next reaction.